Okay, so this is a translation and discussion of Pliny's letter 616, chapters 9 through 11, and it is Tuesday, August 26, 2025. So let's go ahead and continue on. Remember that obviously Pliny the Elder has become alerted to an event that is occurring across the bay, and it originally was going to be a scientific mission, but that guy, meaning Pliny the Elder, his uncle, Pliny the Younger writing, turns his plan, changes his plan, and that which he had begun in coho and cohere means to begin, it's obviously pluperfect, with a zealous mind, he goes on. He it from eo ire iitus with a most zealous mind. So he had been eager with an eager mind for the scientific mission. Now he is obviously changing his plan. Even most eager and most zealous is he going to be going to the rescue mission. He leads out the quadriremes. These are the warships that are going to have the greatest capacity. And he himself climbs aboard a scandit, not for rectina, not only, and so therefore we have here non modo. We have an expression that we see often in Latin, non modo, not only, sed etiam, but also. Sometimes the sed etiam as we have here is going to be left off. And so he climbs aboard that ship, the quadriremes. He himself does so, not only for rectina, but for many people. He is not just obviously wanting to rescue Rectina, the wife of Tascus, his friend. He is instead going to be trying to obviously rescue everybody that he can. For the amoinitas, the pleasantness of that shore, and I'm just adding myself the Ilias from Eleala Lud, but the pleasantness of the shore was crowded. And this gives you a sense as to why so many people wish to live there. It is absolutely stunning if you were to visit even to this day. And so since lots of people live there, because of its beauty, because of its pleasantness, then obviously it is going to end up being, as it is described, as crowded or frequent. He, the one himself, for future active participle about to bring from Pharaoh ferry to Lilatus help. He rushes propero properare to the place Iluk, thither, whence or from where other people are fleeing. Again and again we have highlighted by Pliny the Younger the absolute courage and bravery of his uncle. And que, he holds teneo tenere, present tense because it's second conjugation, a straight course and a straight rudder. And so therefore we have here interlocked word order or synthesis, in which it is going to be here the recta recta and the cursum gubernatacula. And so they are both the direct options of what he holds, a straight course and a straight rudder, in plus accusative, into the danger. Having been loosened, a perfect passive participle, so much adeo, by, or from, I should say, fear. It is ablative, obviously, by, with, because of from, in, on, at. So having been loosened so much from fear that as a result, we have a result clause here in that, obviously, this is one of those degree words. You remember in the Your Mama jokes, which all have, obviously, a result clause, you have the word so and that. And so therefore, there's our so and there's our that, nevertheless. And so therefore, having been loosened so much from his fear, so unconcerned, that as a result, he was dictating, nevertheless, obviously giving oral instructions for somebody to take notes. He was dictating all the movements. This is another example of the fourth principal part, moveo movere, movi motus, that you turn into a fourth declension, motus, motus, and it becomes obviously a movement. All the movements of that evil, here we see again lud, in that it is like the naughty nine, in the genitive singular and dative singular. It's not going to have the normal endings that one would expect in a first and second declension adjective. And not only that, he was of course dictating all the movements and all of the figures. Nevertheless, that or as. So we have to figure out, obviously, is this going to be a subjunctive verb or is it going to be a indicative verb? And so, well, we go and we find out by looking at the principal parts. Deprehendo, deprehendere, and so therefore it is indeed deprehenderat, and thus it is translated as, because this is merely just a pluperfect, and so therefore all the figures as he had, and instead of day, let's understand it with maybe like a comb, comprehend, as he had comprehended them, as he had observed them, oculis, with his eyes. And so not only that as a result he was dictating all of that stuff, and he was literally taking notes, in notare, he was noting it. Now the ash, kinnis, is where we obviously get the word cinder, was falling on the ships, because of from, in, on, at. And whither they approached more closely, and so whither again is to where they approached more closely, the ash then described as hotter and denser. So it's starting to come down a little bit more obvious, heavy in the falling of all the stuff.
Good morning, Eastside High School students. It is picture.
Sorry about the interruption. Again, August 26, 2025. Let's go ahead and finish. And so now, pumice stones, or pumices, and even, and then we have lapides as the other thing, nevertheless implied that they were falling. But now, pumice stones and even stones, black or dark, and having been burned, and having been broken by fire. And then now a sudden shallows, a sudden shoals. Remember, earthquakes are going to accompany the eruption, and so it is sloshing around the water in the bay, creating obviously some places to where all of a sudden it is going to be shallows, and they have a danger of perhaps running aground, and the shores blocking or implied here, like, standing in way of by the ruin of the mountain. And so therefore you have a lot of debris that has fallen and is creating then even a greater amount of shallows, as it is obviously coming into the water and making to where the obviously seabed is going to be rising. So sudden shallows now, and a shoreline, or the shore, standing in the way with the ruin of the mountain necessarily. He, having hesitated, this is a perfect passive looking participle, a little bit, whether he should bend back, whether he should retreat. Soon he says to the helmsman, to the guy driving the boat, the one warning, monio monere, ut ita faceret, that he do it in such a way. In other words, that the helmsman, the guy driving the boat, is saying, we need to turn back. And so soon he says to the helmsman, the one warning that they do it in such a way that they go back, he quotes Virgil and says, Fortes fortuna juvat. Fortune helps or favors the brave. Seek Pomponianus. And so therefore he decides to plow right through into the fallout, into the eruption, into all of the stuff, in order to obviously seek this guy Pomponianus, which is Tascus. That is the husband of that Rectina that we saw before. Previously he referred to him as Tascus, now he's referring to him as Pomponianus. And so thank you so much, and good luck studying. Alright, so this is a translation and discussion of Pliny's letter 616, chapter 12. We start out with our subject, he. This is referring to Pomponianus, who is, of course, Pliny the Elder's friend, that at Stabiae he is obviously going to try and rescue after the letter from his wife Rectina. So he had been cut off at Stabiae by a middle bay, by a middle bend, as it were, in the water. It's a bay or a fold, if you would like. For gradually the sea is poured in with shores having been driven round and having been curved. Essentially what this is telling us, that fact that he had been separated, is that Stabiae, where he is located on the other side of Stabiae, is farther away from the mountain. You can see what they are talking about by looking at the map, which is right here. Pomponianus is going to essentially be on this side, and it's describing that curved little bay that is kind of an inlet of the larger Bay of Naples. That is indeed exactly where they are located at. And so therefore, continuing on, once again, at Stabiae he had been cut off by a middle bay, a middle inlet, for gradually the sea is poured in with shores having been driven round and having been curved. And there, although, this is your ablative absolute, with the danger not yet approaching, however, the danger with it being in sight, and when it increased with the danger being right near, right proximal, right on top of them, very close. He had carried the baggage, the luggages, onto the ships. He, meaning Pliny, certain of flight, certain of running away, if the contrary wind had sat down. This is a pluperfect subjunctive, recedit, and so that's why we translated had. It is going to be the protasis of a past contrary to fact conditional, and thus indeed he certain of flight if the contrary wind had sat down. In other words, the wind is blowing inland, and it is not allowing them to get on their ships and escape from where they are located at Stabii. And so then my uncle, having been carried in Weho, in Wehere, in Wexi, in Wectus, by this most favorable wind. And so in other words, that Pliny the Elder had made good time and had the wind at his back as he was going towards Stabii, but that same wind that had carried him in so well, it is obviously preventing their escape. So then my uncle, having been carried in by which most favoring, most following wind, he complectitur, a deponent verb meaning to embrace or hug. So he embraces the man trembling. He, the subject, is going to be Pliny the Elder, and the object is going to be he, Pomponianus. Then you have several other things that he does. He consoles him. He encourages him. Again, deponent verbs. This one, hortor, hortari, hortatisum, where we get the word exhort. And he does all of this, so that he might lighten, he might alleviate his fear, his referring to Pomponianus, sua securitate, with his own, as in Pliny the Elder, his own security, his own confidence, as it were. He, Pliny the Elder, orders, present tense verb, eubeo eubere, himself implied, to be brought in plus accusative into a bath. Having been bathed, the perfect passive participle lavo lavare, he reclines a kubat, actually kind of takes a nap and beds down. He dines, either hilaris, in good spirits, cheerful, or a thing equally great, similar to cheerful, i.e. he's actually really unconcerned, he's really unworried, or he's faking it. And in that way, obviously, he says that that is equally great because he is showing the confidence and the sort of calmness that is necessary so that the others, like Pomponianus and the other people that are with him, are not going to panic. So, good studying. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck.